Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Star Citizen Live. I'm your host, Jared Huckabee, and I'm just noticing I have no idea how to comb my hair anymore. It's getting so long. Sorry. Joining us on the show this week, we weren't seeing it. Sorry, Pedro's laughing at me already. Joining us on the show this week is the composer for Star Citizen, Mr. Pedro Camacho. Pedro, how you doing, man?
My hair, I cut my hair myself. It was a terrible choice. Hope it doesn't show in this.
No.
I tried to disguise it with a lot of gel or something, it's all stuff. But, it's horrible when you see it in the morning.
Those are all the only three options we got in the new work from home era. We've got the let it go crazy, which is what I'm doing, the take it down to basics, which is like Todd Pappy's doing, and then I got to do something myself, which is what you're doing. So everybody be with you. Pedro, obviously you've been on the show before, and I was doing some research. I was like, how much do we need to introduce Pedro? How much do folks already know him? And we have actually gained several 100,000 citizens since the last time we had you on the show. So before we jump into your process and start looking at the music that you've created for Star Citizen, specifically with New Babbage, I want to start things off and introduce you to a big chunk of our Star Citizen audience. Now, if you've watched the show before, you're like, well, I already know who Pedro is, but you know what? We got new people, so we're going to take some time. Who are you, Pedro? How did you get started with Star Citizen?
And I
Hold
used to
on,
play
hold
with,
on, Pedro. Hold on, Pedro. We had a minor audio thing. Try
yeah,
it
sure.
again.
Yes,
Nope, it's not.
hello?
It was on our end. Now we can hear you.
Okay, no problem. So, as I was saying, I was a huge Commander fan. Did I get started in Star Citizen? I was a huge Wing Commander fan, and I used to play with my father actually before my father passed away at the time. It was a long time ago, and he also loved the project. So when I saw this project being announced, I immediately knew I had to, find a way to contact Chris Roberts. I literally showed him some of my work. So, and I did a demo, and it started like from there. And I got a nice proposal to make as if it was a second stage demo where I had to compose a bunch of stuff and use also live orchestra at the time. Then we used a couple times later as well. But at the time, I had to use the live orchestra, and to see how we would sound with the real thing, and it went. I think it went well. Probably, otherwise I wouldn't be here. Uh, and it's curious, but before that test, I had like a non-prepared test. When we were speaking, I was talking about this like some minutes ago with Jared, that my son is turning 7 on June. And I was composing the first commercial we did on Star Citizen, which was the 300i, and that was about days before. I mean, the commercial came out days later or something. I mean, it was basically the same time as the 300i came out. I was composing it while my wife was almost about to go to hospital, so I finished it before that, thankfully. And it was a special commercial. I still love it. Some people sometimes ask me if I watch the ship I love the most, and I have to say it's 300i because of that. It reminds me of my son, which is, I mean, it's like a treasure for me. So.
Can't
So
get
that's
any
me.
better than that. And then for folks, if you haven't seen the original 300 commercial, you can check that out on our YouTube page. It's available there at youtube.com/RobertSpaceInd, if I remember correctly. All right, so you got started with Star Citizen by approaching Chris Roberts, by reaching out to Chris Roberts after the project was first introduced, and you brought on board. And since then, you've been responsible for most, if not all, of the music that folks have heard in game. In one way or another, we have the procedural music system, and you've composed the structures that are used by that system to put together and stuff like that. The last time we had you on was to do the music for Area 18, if I remember correctly. Is that right?
Yeah. Yes, yes was for Houston. Yes, when
Was
I
it
did
Hurston
music.
or was it Area? Maybe it was Hurston.
Oh, no. I'm sorry. Yes, it was for the area theme. Yes, you're absolutely right, because yes, I remember, because there was the old crazy math stuff I told you about, which was real when I composed the melody for ArcCorp and area theme. Sorry about that. You're right.
No,
You're right. Sorry. It's been too much isolation, so.
It's all right. Today we're going to explore some of the process behind creating the music for New Babbage, which was the landing zone that recently went in with Alpha 3.9. Before we get to New Babbage, let's talk a little bit about how we were talking about this before the pre-show, and I want the folks to get I don't want that conversation just to be for you and I. You're talking about how making music for each planet as individual as possible while still working within a Star Citizen whole. Take us through how you see the planets right now. We've got ArcCorp, we've got Lorville, and now we've got Microtech that are in game. We'll start with ArcCorp, because that was the first there. What is ArcCorp to you? How did you approach ArcCorp?
Well, ArcCorp for me was like taking the question 2 steps. Look, so what I was saying, so 2 things before going through ArcCorp is, each planet is so much work from the team. It's so much dedication that everyone pours into it, that I feel that it requires a complete new set of music that is completely, I try to be as original as possible, without being as so original that no one even relates to it, but trying to be as original as possible. And in ArcCorp in particular, that was I love doing it. It took me a while to do it. That was not a fast piece. New Babbage was done in a much more fast pace. But I tried to merge all the cultures. Everyone looked at ArcCorp, and everyone, immediate response would be, "Oh, this looks like something kind of like, futuristic, punkish, whatever stuff." And I look at it and I say, no. But when I looked at this planet, I see like a merge of cultures all working together at one. And I wanted the music to feel futuristic, but with roots in each kind of style of culture that we could think about. So it was very, to me, it was not an easy process. How could I do this without sounding ethnic, or without sounding African, and without sounding Japanese, or without sounding, without sounding anything in particular, but sounding like everything at the same time. So that was, I think it was a lot of work. I was getting a bit nervous at some times, because since you go into unknown territory, you feel unsafe in what you're doing. But I think in the end, it really worked well. I love the piece till now. I still love it. And I know what others feel about it, but it's very touching to me. So also it is the piece that I also like when I make music for a certain planet. I try to make the music not only describe the planet, but also describe some message that I think when I think about the planet, what I feel when I look at the planet. And since ArcCorp is all that, monstrous city, global constructed city, I thought like, oh man, this is traffic everywhere, everyone crazy going from one side for another, and probably it's so populated, but a bit like in the real world, maybe there was people just go on their routine, work home, or stuff like that. So I try to make that in the music a little bit, not like the frenziness of the world, and everyone in their own. I mean, that's what I thought. Anyway.
And what about Hurston?
Hurston was a completely different approach. One of the things my father loved a lot, one of the things he did when I was a kid was to listen to a lot of music with me. He had a broad taste. Actually, recently, like last week, that happened for the first time in my life. I went to his old LP collection as quite. I mean, I couldn't believe it. I'm 40 now, and I see that collection since I was born, like a huge collection. He was very organized, and I went through all the LPs to see what he had, what he heard, and it's so that's exactly the image I had from when he was still with us, and he loved Vangelis and Jean-Michel Jarre and Tangerine Dreams. So Hurston is like a hymn to those, origins. I mean, the guy. I mean, to me, is like some of the main pillars of electronic music, electronica, and I try to make on Hurston. I try to give it a little different taste. I try to make the synth sound like an orchestra, which was what Vangelis did a lot. Mm-hmm. And try to make the orchestra, which is there, to sound like synths. So it's like the reversal of what we usually do, which is something I never tried before. And I believe it worked quite well. I liked it. I liked it. It was also hard to approach at first, but I think it worked out quite, at least for me, quite nicely. It gives the planet, as I was saying some time ago in our pre-chat, it gives enough space in the music that we could also create a whole feature film in that planet just using that musicscape from those few pieces I did. I think it's enough because there are enough different instruments, enough different thematic content there. So that's how I did Hurston.
One of the things we talked about on the last time you were here was those influences like the Vangelis and the Tangerine Dream and stuff like that, and how we one of the reasons I like talking to you so much, besides your clear passion for the project, is that we share a lot of the same sci-fi or pop culture influences, and it's always a wonderful moment for me when I get to hear something new that you've given. I go. And I play that guessing game. I go, okay. This sounds like it's this meets this. With this coming in on top, and it's a challenge because it's not a. It's I don't know. I want to be careful the way I say this here. There's a difference between inspiration and like copying, and you're not copying. You are taking the essence of those people and those things and bringing them into the music. And I love to be able to identify that. And I'm not always right. Sometimes like I this, and then when I talk to you, like, oh no, it's actually this. And I go, oh, okay, fine. but more times than not, I can see them pretty clearly, and that makes me happy. New Babbage recently went online with Alpha 3.9, and I understand you have it pulled up and ready to go on your computer there. So if you would, we've done enough preamble. We've talked a bit about influences and how we work. Let's go ahead and take a look at your actual process. If you want to switch over, and
sure. Okay.
You take us through.
Okay, so this particular track, which I will show you, it was composed a bit before, not too much before the CitizenCon from last year, and it was basically the first time I tried to feel New Babbage, because the composer receives everything very late in the process, of course, because things have to be done for me to see stuff. In this case, at least. And even though we had, concept arts, I know one thing is that another thing is to have the actual footage inside the planet and to feel it. And when I saw New Babbage, I saw it first as from afar, because the demo started from afar, and I knew the new Babbage. So I was talking about Microtech. We saw Microtech from afar, and then we're coming to new Babbage, and I saw all that snow and all that, horrible effect, horrible, environment. And then when you get to new Babbage, it's like being in a safe place, like being in a beautiful, safe place. And it reminded me. I'm sorry, it's true. I really thought about my daughter, which is okay. She's so my son as something. I've thought about a lot of my son a lot when I did the 300i, and I thought a lot of new Babbage and Microtech, but mainly new Babbage, because it's like when you're a father in the world and you try to, and the world is just is all hazard in the world, like you can see it even more now, and then you try to make the world for your little baby as a safe place. So new Babbage is like a safe place for my daughter to be raised in. So that's how I thought. So I thought, I want music that feels like, okay, everything else is gone. Now you are safe again. You feel the joy of living without worrying, without any worry. So when I did this track, I immediately thought I had to do something very different. And I picked instruments. So one of the instruments I picked was, I wanted to make an organ. I wanted an organ. So it was a very, I don't know if I'm getting too technical, Jared, please let me know. So
not with this crowd. I don't think you can get too technical with a Star Citizen crowd.
So in this in particular, so I don't know if you can hear it. Is it too loud? Is it okay? Okay. So this is the actual initial organ I used, which is a custom patch that was built just for Microtech, for Star Citizen. I wanted to create something that was I try never to use a library patch that we have can buy. I try to also create the instrument. So I like to do that. I don't know if people notice, but I like to do that. That was also merged with a Moog one, which is over here, layer, and it created this because it reminded me of my daughter. I don't know, reminding safe, like a sacred, safe place. Which is what here. Okay, so you get you know that part. Then I thought, well, this needs a bit more meat because I wanted to feel the weight of the city is it's not like a small daughter, it's like a really big daughter. So so there was the bass, so you can do it with more weight. Then I thought okay, so this is what I hear when I'm approaching New Babbage. But I wanted to have an element that felt like being in New Babbage as well, in this crescendo, because this is like a music for you to reach New Babbage. You're reaching in New Babbage. And I thought okay, so I need to make something that makes me feel happy. And this was it, which is actually very odd. It doesn't sound like nothing. And it's also always in the same chord, and the organ is always changing chord, and then the strings and everything and all the arrangement. And you might think, and at first I thought, well, I'm doing just one chord for one part, and the other part is always moving. Can sound a bit strange. Well, the reason I did that and I kept it that way, I wanted to, no problem. I wanted the music to have the sounds from inside New Babbage. Don't hear the sound that you're hearing when you're reaching New Babbage. So that was kind of the philosophy I had. So it was like, so you hear. And then after that, there's the melody theme from New Babbage, which is this. It repeats throughout the whole. It's like I'm sorry. So it's kind of like it goes up and then down. It's a bit gracious, like a ballet dancer when he's bowing in the end or something like that. That's what the image I had in mind. The sound of the violins is a bit different than what I usually use, which is played near the bridge, which is a sol ponticello. I wanted this sound because it's more frozen. It reminds me more Frozen, and the planet is frozen, so it's not the usual articulation that you will get from the violin. So if this was played, let's hope I'm not taking too long. I hope I'm doing something I was not supposed to do, because I can screw this up completely, But this is live, which is basically a bad idea. But I'm taking you down. Okay, let me see. If there was a normal situation, I'm trying to not screw this up and see. So this would be the normal bow position from a string or an orchestra with this in the string section. I wanted these strings to fill the ice code of New Babbage. So I created this. I used a patch where the strings are played in legato, but in a more frozen way. But the sound, the result initially was a bit too harsh. So I kind of mixed with a bit of sul tasto, which is played near a bit more up in the strings, not so down near the bridge. Is a bit more. Sorry, the term. I'm not in Portuguese. I have the name now, but in English I kind of forgot now in live stream. Sorry, it's so bad. Anyway, and this resulted like this. Then it repeats again, doubled in octaves. So as you're hearing, so the strings are playing the melody, that odd stuff. You're just playing a single chord because it's like the joy of a kid. Inside when he reached New Babbage, I felt like a kid when I saw New Babbage inside. It was like, wow, this is awesome. I loved it. I personally loved it. So it had to have the joy inside. And then there's the organ, which feels the sacred side, like the sanctum place where you're safe there, all away from all that hazard stuff. And then after that build up, this was a hard part for me. Not easy at all to achieve, but after a lot of experiments, I felt, well, when I reach there, I want to feel like, oh, I'm here. So I hope you feel that musically. I'll play this a little bit here. And you will hear a soprano, because the soprano was singing in the Microtech theme before we reach the New Babbage landing zone. And this is a soprano because it's a female. I don't know. It reminds me, I don't know. Sorry. No one told me to consider Microtech like something, have any gender. That's just my image. Sorry, but and that was basically this, in a very simplified way, was the way I kind of did the first part of the theme. Then there's the second part, like a repeat, but with more emphasis in the epicness of the site, not so the emotional part, but the more epicness of the site, which I love. That's why I just can show this to you. a second. So. It's a bit loud. They're telling me it's a bit loud because it really gets loud in the stream. Sorry, I'm distorting a little bit. I'm very apologize. But
it's worth mentioning to folks that Pedro is in Portugal and dialing into us over Teams across the world. So for those of you wondering, why the sound isn't as pristine as it might otherwise be, we are on teleconferencing compression. But you can always, as always, jump into the game and hear the full, unadulterated version just by traveling to Babbage. Continue.
So basically, there's a lot of technical. This music was a bit technical. In this track, I didn't go too much back in my influence. I went for more modern influences of electronic music that I really love. I love hearing. I love symphonic part. I love orchestra. I also love electronica. So it was a bit more modern. It was more about patch building, creating the sounds that each instrument had. Like, I don't know if I can. Oh, this isn't big out. So sorry, this. So this is one of the sounds. This is another. And there's I created like 20. Then I narrowed down to these ones. So you're just getting the final result. We've seen so little, but it took so much. It was difficult to get. Explore and to get into this. I was nervous when I created this because it's so different, organ, strings, synths. It's not too common, and soprano. I thought, but I hope you guys enjoy it. I'm proud of it, but hope you enjoyed it.
Cool. Folks, as always, we are open to questions. If you have any questions for Pedro, you can drop those into the chat. You preface your question with the word "question," surrounded by brackets. That'll help us pull it out from the conversation. I have gone ahead and queued up the new Babbage track on my end here. This was a demo. This was a 60-second demo that you published on your YouTube channel, Pedro. With your permission, I'd like to just play it now so folks can hear it.
The music is for CIG, it's not mine. So
okay, let me cue that up here and then. We're going to do it one more time while questions come in. Guys, go ahead and submit your questions into the chat. You got a video for this, so I'm just going to move this over here, and we're just going to play the video here. Pedro can't hear this, but I'm going to assume he's heard it enough times that he doesn't need to hear it one more time. We'll play it again there. And that, of course, is on Pedro's YouTube channel. We're not gonna plug. I'm no shill. You can find it on your own if you want to, though. I'm just teasing you. All right, so Pedro, we've got questions coming in now. Right off the bat, the first, will you be working on the upcoming landing zones as well? Well, I mean, New Babbage is a landing zone as opposed to Microtech as a planet. So I guess they're asking, have you already started working on other landing zones that we know are coming in the future, like Origin?
No. So no, it's I come a bit later in the process.
Okay.
Of course, it's not up. It happens to you when it has to be. It comes, so basically.
Right.
And
I suppose it's better for you to have something really to see before you start your work anyway. It's like just like a movie composer has most of the a rough cut of the movie ready before they begin composing.
It's when I did ARCorp, I did way before. Started
Okay.
way before, and New Babbage, I came in very late. And there are pros and cons in each process. I think when it comes very early, you can experiment a lot. Sometimes you just deviate a lot of the time, and because you have the luxury of time. When you don't have time, sometimes you just have a day or some few hours. You just have to do it. Sometimes it comes even better because you did it with your first reaction
Right.
to what you saw. So it's not bad. It's always good. So it's I'm not worried to have more or less time to work to be already working. It's not always a benefit.
Yeah, it reminds me of one of my favorite stories about music composition for films in general. It has to do with E.T. and how usually a composer comes in, they see the rough cut of the movie, it's all put together, and they compose to the edit. But during obviously the best scene in E.T., which is the bikes taking off into the air, it's like that. Williams was having trouble getting it to the timing they had, and it's like and Steven goes, okay, just do what you'd want to do, and then Williams lets loose and goes, okay, we're going to recut the movie and match that. It's there are definitely more than one way to go about this process.
Of course.
Does Pedro know? Does Pedro know? Knows in capital letters how much we love his music.
I mean, it's always easier to love music when it's coupled with an amazing project and with amazing visuals and with amazing sound team, and everything looks awesome. So it's a bit of unfair. There's a lot of talented folks around the world that didn't have the luxury I had to have this opportunity of working in such an amazing project. So, but it gives us responsibility to and which I like. I actually love. I love pressure. I work super better under pressure than any other method. But it's one thing is for sure, and I should have mentioned before, but I will take this to mention this, which is very important. Throughout the process of making music of Star Citizen, I've never been alone, ever. There have been a lot of talented people that have worked with me and helped me a lot to get through and to give me ideas inside. Not only, of course, obviously Chris Roberts, because I mean, this is his child in a way. This project is his child, so he knows what he wants, and he has always a word to say. And I love his insights. So it's amazing, which compares with, he's like a living encyclopedia of movie soundtracks and classical music and electronic music. I mean, he knows a lot. So it's someone that you care for when you get feedback in. It's not like, so that's a very good thing. And also that benefited a lot Star Citizen because he knew what he wanted and he knew how to articulate what he wanted with me, and that helped. So we're not, other persons that I have to mention. I'll go in the backward orders from the most recent. At least I have to mention that there's the other director, which is Darren Lambourne. He's a super talented composer as well, and also a talented musician, and he helped me a lot through this process. New Babbage in particular, and I'll specifically mention this track that I showed you. I didn't have this orchestral percussion initially, which was actually his idea. He said my music was a bit more electronica, and he said, Pedro, you're forgetting the orchestral percussion side. You have to try to give it a bit more, I was so under pressure at that time. I said, "Oh my goodness, I have to review this track." But I made the review, and actually he was right. And after hearing it after some months, and you hear the version I did and the version after his comment, and it was definitely better as he commented. But so if I didn't have that extra pair of ears, that would be absolutely impossible. Another person I have to mention it, which is still working with us, thankfully, is Phil Pierce Smallwood. I mean,
we don't have to mention Phil. We don't have to mention Phil.
But Phil was absolutely. I feel he was absolutely great during the whole process. I mean, not only in New Babbage, also in all the Citizen Cons, which is always this time when I compose a lot of it has happened for me to compose a lot of music, and he is my sideman. Like, no one can be. Well, I don't like be considering me like a maverick, but if I was going to be a maverick, he will be nothing without Goose beside him. You need a co-pilot to be with you. Sometimes, just saying, don't worry, we got your back. Even if this music comes a bit later, we'll find a way to place it to make it sound good. It makes you feel more relaxed. It gives you insight, gives you ideas. So just like in a movie, and I think because I've worked in a lot of commercials with a lot of directors, and it's and a game is particular is even more. I think there's a lot of teamwork. Also, the implementation is great. I'm grateful that it was very well implemented, the music in the game. Otherwise, if it was placed in a wrong moment in the game, it wouldn't sound any good. And there are many other persons that came before them, like Ross Turgenza, which was also a great guy, Lee Banyard.
Yeah, I actually composed with Ross Turgenza when we did the Ballad of Big Benny's a couple of years ago. That was me working with Ross Turgenza, and that was less. People like that song less than they like your stuff, though.
No, it was great. I actually love. He was he was very. He was like the person that had the role of Phil now. It was great to work with him as well. Also, there's a Luke who at some point played guitar for me. I mean, he was great. I mean, the whole team is important for you to make any great music. So if you love me, you're not loving. Sorry, if I was alone, you would not love me. Only with this team, it's possible. That's how I feel. I'm not saying this, just because it looks good or it feels good or it's usual people to say, this is actually the real stuff that's happening in the project. So thankful for the team. Thank you, sir.
Will, next question. Have you considered vocal-based tracks for the verse? I know when we did Artcorp had that vocal track that was in it. I actually, but I'll answer the question first, and then I'll tell my story. But so considering vocal-based tracks.
Yeah,
for sure.
Definitely. I one of the things I always love to hear is pop music and rock music and metal music. I love it. It's not probably because of how I was born. I heard a lot of styles, different styles. And there's the one thing I always learn with my composition teacher in a classical school, who's a fabulous composer, Eurico Carrapatoso. Is a great classical composer here in Portugal, very talented. And he always told me, and that's also something I always believed in, is that there are only two kinds of music, good or bad. So, you have to try to make good music, and vocals are the basis of the whole music that we do. So yes, I've thought about vocals, but sometimes it's not as fast to get them right. So you need a bit more time to get everything right. So it takes a little bit, but
Do you remember the last time you were on the show and we were doing the Area 18? And this is how I knew it was Area 18 and not Lorville, was because I asked you to isolate the vocal track, and I was going to use it as a ringtone on my phone.
I sent you.
Oh,
a lot later. Sorry about that. Yes.
I don't know if you can hear it.
Oh my goodness. He's hearing it.
Yeah, right out of my phone. No, trust me, when I'm in the supermarket and that goes off, it gets some looks.
Oh my goodness. Everyone looks at you. Who the hell is that voice? That's horrible.
Isolated. Let's see. What else do we got? have you worked on any pieces of music for for specific alien races?
I did at some point, but more recently, we've been focusing on landing zones and planets and places where we can explore. Why? Because because that's what I've been requested. Basically, that's that's the most basic answer.
Yes.
But also because it's the more defining pieces are the where you are, then you get from what you are. Maybe I think so, and that's not so quite. But I mean, so far we are doing planets where planets I've scored are planets where there's still no trace of alien races, at least as far as I know. There's no trace. But
Next question from the chat. When you compose, do you work systematically, like one thing after another towards an end, or do you fall into a sort of jamming session to just kind of explore and see where it goes?
no, no, no. It's always in sequence. There's no exploring. You have to do that, and you just do that, and that's it. It has to be done until you get to the next one. Don't jam. It's not good because you have to focus on one thing and just get it done and go to the next. Which is great because you go into very ultra fine detail. We didn't hear it here in the chat, which is very hard. But for example, when one of interior musics that I did for New Babbage that we didn't hear here, I did the track. I liked it. I think the mix was nice. But then later on, Darren came in, and he also mixed the track. What you hear in the game is with Darren's mix, and his mix made the track. It's the same thing, basically it's the same thing, but it feels different because of the mix. The mix is also important, so you have to focus in one thing to get to the the fine details of that. So it's not only the notes, it's also the patches, the way you perform it on MIDI or record live, and also the way you mix. So I think jamming will never get you. At least for me, it doesn't work. But if it can work for other people, but not for me.
Do you have a favorite instrument that you tend to gravitate to in many of your compositions? The question came from the chat, but it reminds me. I come from a family of musicians. Both my older brothers are composers, and one of them heavily favors guitar. He'll throw guitar into every composition he can. But the other one, and he didn't realize this until we pointed it out to him, but he favors timpanis. Like every single thing he composes has a timpani in one way or another, and we had to point it out to him. Eventually, it's like, hey, Eric, try to make something without a timpani once. But do you have an instrument that you tend to gravitate to more than others?
I think it's more the voice. That's how I think. I don't actually have to sing it. I can hear it in my head, but it's always with a voice. What a vocal it can be, a guttural voice like a or some groovy. But if you groove or something like that, and you can feel the rhythm. You're looking at the screen, you're looking at the image or the movie, and I feel it with my voice. And then the melodies also, I try to sing them while I write them. If you can sing a melody, it usually is a good sign. You don't have to sing it to be a good melody. Attention, there are melodies that go in extreme ranges. I hardly could sing this melody here, but in my head I can sing with any range I have because I can have a soprano voice inside my head. But or whatever in my head, but it's always with a vocal tone into it. So maybe it's the voice. Even though I'm a pianist myself, so I end up after doing that part, I go to the piano to make the harmonies and to find the colors that can. I think this was a good example in this track that we heard with, where a very simple instrument that was just doing a simple triad, gained so many colors along the track because it had different harmonies next to it.
I like the use of the word color to describe music. It fits. It seems incongruous, but it works.
It works very well, right?
Yeah.
I like it.
Do you feel it makes Do you feel it makes it easier to write music for a universe that feels so alive versus making music that's not based on a game? So I guess they're asking whether it's easier to make music for a game versus a movie or something else.
Oh, there are different problems. Usually, in the usual sense, when you write for a movie, it usually the deadlines are much shorter. You have to write it much faster, and sometimes the music you can
keep going. I have somebody at my door.
no, and you can actually make the music work with the mix that you have. For example, if you have the sound effects, you have the if you already have the sound, then the dialogue, you can make music in a way that will work with that. Sometimes it can be simpler, sometimes it can be more complex. You always have to judge everything. When you're doing music for a game, the music is, you don't know what's happening in the game. It can be, well, sometimes you do, but for ambient music, you don't know what's happening exactly on the game. So in that regard, I think in both worlds there are many different situations that and specific problems that occur. On Star Citizen, for example, I do tend to work a lot with both sides of it. When I do music for marketing, I'm doing music as if it was for a movie, a bit with a longer deadline than usual, because when I'm writing for a commercial or something, I mean, or movies, it's like there's like days of deadline. You have like 1 day to make a cue, 1 day or less than a day, and it has to come out, whatever, it has to come out good, in a good way. And for a game, you usually tend to have a bit more time. Not always in Star Citizen. In Star Citizen, sometimes you have also a short deadline, and all the aspects you have to deal with that come with a non-linear, with the fact that the game is never linear. You don't know what's happening, what the sound effects are going to be. So it does. So when you compose for a game, if you know there can be an explosion, maybe you can't make any percussion that sounds too low anywhere during the whole 2 or 3 minutes of the song, because it can happen in the start or in the end. If you're a scoring movie and you know the explosion is going to occur at that moment, you can beef up the percussion before that and then calm down on the explosion, or the mixer will just mix it, because it's actually a mixer that will mix the movie. So, I mean, I think it's both have a lot of challenges. One thing you have to do is try to make good music. That's the two styles of music, good or bad. Try to make the good one.
Yes, just to answer the folks in the chat, I am winded. I just got a delivery, and it's heavier than any 3 people. I just had to get it in the door before somebody took it. So yes, I apologize for being very clearly winded right now. What else do we got from the chat? What's your favorite piece of music from a game other than Star Citizen?
Oh, yes, I have. The music that really stuck with me the most. There's a track, and I actually made a homage on Star Citizen because of it, and it's a track that was from Chaos Engine, which were the same company that made Speedball 2 on Amiga. It's a long time ago.
Yeah.
Early 90s. And I used to play a lot, again, with my father. I used to play Chaos Engine with him. And there was like, I just loved the vibe of it. It was electronica, and I really worked very well for the tech at the time. Of course, we have to have that in account. I also love a lot the music, always for Amiga. Amiga was very important to me because Amiga was a computer where I started composing when I was like 11 or 12 years old. I started composing at that age, and actually it was 12, because that's I know it was 12 actually. Sorry to keep mentioning this, but it's important because he was part of my composition history. Because the first piece of music that I did was the last piece of music that my father heard. So, and he enjoyed it. After that, he had a cancer and he stopped being able to hear. So, and eventually he passed away. So, so that Amiga was very important to me. I used to play a lot with my dad, and computer games in general are very important to me, also because of that. Oh, we also enjoyed movies together a lot. But for a game, so those games, because I had, it was games I had a lot of fun. I think that's and I enjoyed the music actually. Another game was Flashback. I really enjoyed the music on Flashback on Amiga. That was really awesome.
I didn't play that one.
Shadows of the Beast, another incredible. The first time I heard the music from Shadows of the Beast, I was like, whoa, which had that pan flute, the Shadows of the Beast one, actually. It was curious when I was working in Star Citizen and making the music for the racing track, where the music, which I called speed activated, which was the only other music I had my voice in. And there's a part that what I say speed activated. That was a homage to the Chaos Engine. If you play Chaos Engine and you kill a node, and it always says a voiceover node activated with the same kind of groove. I tried to contact the person who did the music for Chaos Engine because I thought maybe it would be cool to actually use the bass line from the game. And getting me an authorization, but unfortunately the person is already dead. The composer is already dead. So anyway, sorry for the long response, but there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of awesome music that has been done recently, but that's the music that really stuck with me a lot in this particular young age. So that's it.
Yeah, I was looking it up. It popped up on the screen. I actually have the speed activated track on here.
That's why I say speed activated. That's the reason I say that. It only comes up to the build up, and it stopped in the speed activated. So, but was a big
I'm actually playing the speed activated track for people right now. That's all we'll do for that, but so let's see. Let's go back. We've only got 8 minutes left. What else we got? Flies. What's the strangest thing that you've sampled that's ended up in a piece of music for Star Citizen?
Yeah, that was my voice, of course.
Your voice?
Activated. Yeah, it's the strangest thing ever.
Oh, that was your voice?
That was my voice. Speed activated was my voice. Oh, completely changed. So it just kind of really reminds Chaos Engine. I mean, if you never played it, I mean, you should buy a controller, get an Amiga emulator, and try to play it. It's a really fun game.
I remember once we had talked about doing elevator music where I was going to sing my own. You were going to write me a version of "Girl from Ipanema." We never did.
Oh, you have to do it.
Tall and tender. No. Do you get more satisfaction working with a musical style you're used to, or when you get to experiment with a musical style outside of what you're familiar with?
I kind of prefer outside because it's always challenging. Because, one thing I notice in my life is that people usually judge other styles as easier than the style they're used to until they actually have to do it themselves. And when they have to do it themselves, they actually come to the conclusion, oh my goodness, this stuff was not as easy as I thought. Usually that happens. For example, I'm a jazz musician. For example, this is just an example. And usually jazz has a very complex harmonic structures. It's kind of deep stuff. You have to learn it to play it correctly. And then you say, yes. Pop is so easy. Just 2 or 3 chords. Anyone can do it. Then you try to do it. When you try to do it, then you come with the challenges. Mm-hmm. And then you have also, when you finish, you have to make A/B with an actual good pop song, and you say, oh my goodness, my track doesn't sound any good. Jesus Christ, this is not that easy as I thought. So it's always great to be humble and respect others' work. So always try to do something you're not used to, something.
Okay.
I like.
We've had a couple of people ask if the music playing in bars in Star Citizen, like the vocal tunes at M&V Bar and Wally's, were yours or not?
No, not mine. Something I should have mentioned in here and I should have that. As far as I know, the music in New Babbage Bar was done by Darren Lambert, and he composed all that. He did an awesome job on that, and I hope I could have done one, but I was busy doing the non-diegetic tracks, which requires a lot of other style of work. I mean, that's how it ended up. Maybe sometime I'll try to someday do one. Hope it. But I did the music with vocals for the 300i commercial, the second one, which had the singer.
Right.
So there were vocals, a bit jazzy, but there were vocals. It was cool.
No, I was very impressed by that one, actually. I wasn't I was on other things, so I had no involvement in that trailer or anything at all, and I saw it for the first time when it went live on YouTube, and that's like the first time I had seen it. I had heard it and everything, and I was like, it was so different than anything we had done before. My first question was that Pedro? And then as I listened to it, I'm like, all right, no, that's Pedro. It's just he's just outside his wheelhouse. It's really good, and I have to give minor credit to Mike Kinshella, who wrote the lyrics. As much as loath as I am to give any credit to Mike Kinshella.
He was great. He was great doing lyrics. It was hard to match the music to the picture that was already locked and make it seem like the music was composed before the picture was done. Very, very tricky. At least for me, it was very tricky.
And
anyway.
you did the music for the Carrick trailer that folks saw at CitizenCon, right?
Yes, I did.
Talk to us about that. What was that like?
That was awesome. I loved doing it. I was in a stupendous. I loved that trailer. I think I don't know if people enjoyed it. I really enjoyed working in it. I feel it was great because we started very intimate. We had a very classical style tone in the start, and then we went much more broad and modern, and then we end up, with full. In the mix, I don't know if you hear how the music went really loud at some point. That was cool. I remember when the director said, "Oh, I got goosebumps right now." So that's a good sign when they say that, or when they curse. Shit, sorry, that's not supposed to say that. But when you say that, that's always a good sign. When you say, "Oh yeah, it's quite interesting, very good," it's not so good.
Let's play that real quick before we head out there, because this is worth hearing. We'll just cut me out of here. There we go.
My father always used to say I had wanderer's legs. We all wonder, what's out there? But for me, it was more than that. A stranger in my own world, I set out to find my path. Through all my travels, through all the trials of the unknown, I came to realize that there was really only one thing I'd been looking for. A place to call home.
All right. If I had realized we were going to play stuff, I would have made it so that you could hear it, Pedro. I apologize for making you sit there quietly
It's fine.
while folks
No,
listen to your
it's
thing.
fine.
So that is our show for today. Thank you so much, Pedro, for taking time to be here with us. We don't have you on nearly enough. We'll make sure it's not another year and a half before we bring you back on again. For those of you who are curious what it was that got delivered, it was that, and it's far heavier than I expected it to be. So that's what I'll be doing. Yeah, not pizza, that. Also, before we call it today, we got a good idea from Molly. Molly, our community manager, suggests that maybe we should raid somebody. We've never done that on Star Citizen Live before, and I think we should. So we're going to do a little thing here. The community team, Molly, Ulf, Tyler, and them, they have been doing some terrific outreach to our community influencers and content creators and stuff as of late, and I think we can help them out with this. Send a little over 1,000 viewers to raid a Star Citizen streamer who's live right now named Bognagus. Who is a delightful individual who lately has been doing everything he can to be the perfect criminal. So we're gonna see how his quest to become the perfect and most efficient criminal goes. So when you get there, tell him Molly sent you. For Star Citizen Live, I'm Jared. That was Pedro. We'll see you next week, everybody.